Good morning. Welcome to Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg, and it's the 29th day of January 2025. Welcome to the show today. We have Liberty Essentials on today, and I'm going to bring everybody right on with Bill Mohr and Karen the Riveter. Ralph, the IT guy, isn't here today because we were, in fact, having some upgrades done, and so the broadcast going to BNN might be a little flaky today. If you know other people that are watching, tell them to go right straight to either one of the Rumble channels or to you can go to the USTPM site on YouTube. You can go to the X account, my X account, or Facebook account. So there's or the Tor accounts. Okay, so I published a Telegram, so all the links will be in there. And if we need to make a change to a different channel, that's fine. We're still here. So how you guys doing today?
Oh, a little sore, but otherwise doing all right.
Yeah, I heard you hurt your back.
Yeah, and it's sad. The older you get, you think simple things, carrying, like 30 pounds and just not thinking, and twist and drop instead of turn and drop. That'll do it.
All you got to do is just do one wrong move anymore, and you're a baby to me. So I mean, it does get worse. I'll just tell you that right now. It does in fact get worse. So
that's my life since I was a teenager, because my spine's shaped like an S.
Oh yeah. So what are we going to talk about today, guys? Because we kind of talked about a few things. I did make a TikTok video this morning talking about how the unions the federal unions, the TSA, are paying into their 60,000 employees are paying into the union dues, and the unions are in fact contributing to the Democrat Party, which I find to be a serious conflict of interest. All of these unions have to, I hate to say it, and we work with the unions have not done a favor to either the workers or the companies working with them. And I can tell you that because we were involved in something with Central State Teamsters, where they basically, when they wrote the ERISA Act, after Studebaker looted the pensions, they wrote into it, or I'm going to say it was intentional, that they didn't allow for the fact that their own people within who are managing the pensions or managing the unions would loot their own pensions, or mismanage them. And that's exactly what happened. And then they came back to the employers who had paid in good faith and said, you're going to have to make this right. There were so many people that went out of business, and that will never get away from this their entire lives. They literally destroyed the lives of so many people by this. They knew what they were doing. I'm completely convinced of this. And it's going on right now with this whole TSA thing, paying into basically the union rig the elections through this sort of contributions. And it should be illegal. This week too, when Benson put she violated campaign finance clearly, because she was making announcements and basically promoting herself within government buildings within the office. This is a clear violation. It's clearly breaking the law. And we got a big problem here, guys, because nobody that's sitting in there seems to care.
Well, she's getting sued for it, isn't she?
I would expect.
I think that's how it came. Yeah, she's getting sued for it. That's how the news came out. Well, somebody was paying attention and somebody disagreed.
She might have more lawsuits. That. She might have more lawsuits than she knows about right now too, because it was an egregious break of the law. If you find out anybody else who's suing her, let me know, because I want to see what's happening within the Republican Party, because they've been a total loss at this point.
Yeah, all of these government agencies, that's how they funnel money for political parties, and we're going to talk about that a little bit this morning. But they continually give all these benefits to different agencies, and they continue to promote them. And really, they're all private agencies, including the TSA. I mean, they have some legislation governing them, but for the most part, the TSA has its own policies. Policies are the destroyer of nations. They undermine everything about the Constitution. There's no lawful authority within them. Unique thing. My family had an opportunity to kind of stick it to the TSA just this last week. They were down in Texas, and my nephew had just finished up his basic training for the Air Force. And so they were down there at a celebration. I stayed home because baby should be due any day now. So I didn't really want to travel too far away. But they ended up flying down there instead of driving, which is normally not the way my family operates, but they wanted to get it done fairly quick. In their flight from Grand Rapids to Dallas to San Antonio, they ended up being delayed a total of 10 times, right?
Wow.
Delayed 2 full days. And anyway, they had a big uproar and stink down there. And I don't know all the details yet. I'm still waiting to get those because they've got to meet with me sometime this week. But if you look up January 25th, San Antonio Airport, you'll realize that there's a bunch of news articles down there that the airport was evacuated for a false alarm, is what they claimed. And that's really all that anybody has ever said about it. But just letting you know, that was part of the Mohr family getting in an uproar because TSA and the other airlines couldn't do their jobs. So I'll leave it at that. I won't give out any names because the media hasn't got on it too deep yet anyway. So,
well, and there's a lot that they're not saying. It's like when I was in DC last week, I'm going to tell you what, the FBI building looked like it was boarded up. And then yesterday there was a video that came out by a guy that basically said they emptied out the entire building for the Department of Justice and they were all walking outside. There are a lot of things going on right now. Nothing is as it appears. I'm going to just say that right now, that literally nothing is as it appears. We need to be holding our breaths just a little bit, trying to remain calm. Things are not going to be the way that what's really happening, what we're getting the news on, it's not the same. It is absolutely not the same. So as we go through this, realize I believe we're cleaning out the criminals. I believe that they are absolutely starting to clean this government bloat out. So when we hear news, don't get rattled about it. Don't get too excited. Just sit there and go, well, at least something's happening. We're watching something happening. And I believe it could be the changing of the old guard and moving into another era. But that's going to require us to just kind of sit back and relax and realize that it may look bad at a point in time, but I believe the good guys are in control. But it's not going to look like what we think it is. We think we know what's going on. We don't. They're not going to say anything. They're just going to do it because if they say something, the bad guys know too. So time to be calm. Feel bad about something, sit down and pray. Realize there's going to be a lot of people losing their freaking minds. I've seen that this week to a huge degree that I cannot even tell you how much hostility is coming out of people because of the stress. So just sit back. Eyes on God.
Well, I would tend to disagree with that as well, though, because the changing out of the old guard. I mean, if you look at the people who are put in positions today, we have a federal government that is full of nothing, and I mean nothing.
Agreed.
But Satanists, globalists, big pharma, and numerous other abominations that are sitting up there in the federal government. Right? None of the justice has been served over the last 8 years. And frankly, I really don't expect it to be. I would love to see it done. And don't think that I'm like far out in left field here, because I have watched some things be done. I've seen some of the deportations being done, right, as was promised, though I think they're a little lacking yet. But what I don't see is the actual justice, namely through the upholding of the law, of all of the things that we've been fighting over the last 60, 70 years. And that's really what needs to happen. All these little things will self-correct if we would go after the bigger problems. And that is the absolute tyranny that we allow the federal government to hold over the people.
I guess what I'm saying is, what happens if there's actually good guys behind the scenes, not in the seats right now, that, we can conjecture, we can say, well, maybe the military's in control right now, which is very possible. We don't know. There's a lot of things we don't know. But I guess I do believe that first and foremost, that God is in control. Sometimes that includes handing us our tails for not doing what we're supposed to be. Dad takes us to woodshed a little bit and says, all right, guys, it's time for you to step up and stop being slackers here, which I think is very possible. But I do believe there's a lot of good guys there. I've met a lot of good guys, and I mean, guys is Michigan term for guys and gals. It doesn't matter. And so, it's like, I do believe that there's some interesting things happening. And until I see something to panic about, I'm going to continue to say, maybe they're using these events to, in fact, remove the people that have broken the law. When the information that came out, and I posted some of it yesterday, and let me run back to my Telegram channel a minute. I talked about it yesterday too, with regard to. Hang on a minute. Let me get to the screenshot here. Oh, I didn't post it in there. Yes, I did. Just got to find it. In regard to the code and what that means when we're looking at, say, oh, come on, Donna, you're better than this. Where is it? But I want to quote it. That's why I'm looking for it, because I think that that's important. Yeah, maybe it's in my screenshots here. Wow, that just got kind of ghosted on me. This is amazing. Let's try the other phone. Maybe I'll find it here.
What are you looking for? I'm
looking for the documentation that, in fact, they're breaking the code and what the punishment is for harboring aliens, the illegal aliens. So it goes right from the top right down to the bottom, and so anybody that actually took the money for harboring illegals, the $400 to $800 in the state, they're in big trouble, because this is a clear. Oh, here it is. All right, hang on. I'll get it. So 8 U.S. Code 1324, any persons who encourages or induces an alien to come to enter or reside in the United States, knowing or in reckless disregard of that fact, that such coming to entry the residence is or will be in violation of the law, shall be punished as provided. Imprisoned not more than 5 years. In the case of violation in which the offense was done for the purpose of commercial or financial gain, imprisoned for not more than 10 years. And I'm like, we're talking to you, Catholic services, Lutheran services, Bethany services, and all of these do-gooder 501c3s and NGOs that were enabling this for commercial and for profit, because they're using that 501c3s as a distraction, but that's true. In the case of violation during and in relation to which a person causes serious bodily injury to or places in jeopardy the life of any persons in prison for not more than 20 years, that's to the judges that have let them out right there. All the judges that have not enforced the law, or the politicians that didn't enforce it, that's where they fall. And in the case of violation resulting to the death of any person, be punished by death or imprisonment for any term of years or for life. Once again, that goes to the judges, but this also applies to anyone who was taking money, and that means the corporations that were housing them in all of the hotels, the people on the ground that were taking the money and to house them in their houses, all of it. It's all covered in that, and it goes from top to bottom, including the township boards, the legislature, the three witches, the cops, the judge. I mean, every one of them that's in violation.
Yeah, and they all, according to that code, and that is righteous law. According to that code, they are to be prosecuted for any crimes that are committed by the illegals that they have brought in. Right? That's borderline treason. If you know the illegal is in fact here to subvert our nation, our laws in the nation, and you still allow them in, that is treason. Yes. That is still punishable by death, right? There's no getting around it.
This is what just is shocking to me, that you have these local government officials, like mayors and school superintendents and so on, that are like, we're not going to work with ICE. And it's like, you just made a public declaration that you were violating the law. Thank you for making it easier to prosecute you later on.
It's a violation of war. It's a declaration of war, actually.
I think everything is happening step by step. That's how I see it. So it's kind of frustrating to some of us who are like, I want everything to happen now. Like the little girl in the chocolate factory. I use that meme sometimes. I want it now. Why haven't we talked about the elections? And I'm like, okay, well, first we got to get the J6ers out there. Trump is going to let the people bring the election issue to the forefront. He's not doing it yet. He has got to secure the safety of our country first. And so everything is like, okay, we can't do everything on day one. He did a whole lot on day one, and he did a whole lot more within the first week, one step at a time. So are the illegals that they're deporting right now, I think, are, if they haven't done it already and we're just being told after the fact, because I think that's quite a possibility. I think they're starting with the criminals that they know exist, and they've just been waiting for the public to be able to handle it. What has the response been? Like the celebrity the other day that put a video out where she's just distraught and in tears. I don't think she was acting, although that's a possibility.
Selma
But,
Gomez.
some people just can't handle it because they still don't understand. So I think you still have to do it step by step so that we don't dissolve into chaos. We can handle it, but the people are learning step by step in order to stand up and disagree. I think Michigan feels like we're like behind the ball a little bit. I mean, Donna, you've been talking about all these issues that Michigan has. I watched the Macomb segment the other day.
Oh, isn't that good? Gene Zott is amazing.
I mean, look at how much corruption is in Michigan. We have got a long way to go. When are we going to be able to rescue our elections, for example? I'm still wondering, something needs to happen in order to shake Michigan up to get to the point where we can get from here to there. And I'd like to see it happen before the next election so that we can be sure of the next election. And the more I watch, by the way, the more I think you should run again. But that's my personal opinion. I'm just looking at your competition so far and going, nah, she could chew them up and spit them out. If we had a good election process that you could win, if it could be secured. How are we going to do it? I don't know.
I actually prayed about this because I'm really glad that I lost in the last election. I was not meant to win, and I believe in that because I just really do. Through all the cheating and such, the value that I had in not winning is to see the corrupt process doing everything that needed to be done in the correct way, regardless of all the cheating outside of what I saw. And every single one of them was cheating. It was all rigged. I saw it as soon as I came in, that the Republican Party had picked 12 candidates that basically divided it up as a market segment. It was a marketing campaign to keep everybody confused, and they would bring one person up and all of a sudden he's the leader, then this one's the leader, then that was the leader, so that nobody knew where to look within the Republican Party, and it wasn't fair. They contributed, I think it was $20 million to Craig. So he was their front runner because he had all kinds of cash to throw at things, but they really didn't want him to win either. They were keeping the American people, the Michigan people, completely confused. So they didn't know who to look at or who to listen to. So they're like this going, okay. And then the flirt factor came out for Kelly and Soldano and Dixon, and that was all over and showed the actual character of Americans, which it was a full-time flirt fest going on there. If you went to the political things. Instead of being serious, it wasn't.
And I heard that when you said that Craig didn't even want to run, but they put a big billboard up or something and advertised that he was running, and he's like, I didn't plan on doing this.
He was mad when he told me that too. He said, I had no intention of running. I didn't want to run, and here's this ad. So who was behind it? It was the Republican Party. There's no two ways about it. That did this. He's like, I just wanted to be chief of police. And I heard him. My husband was there and heard him. There was another person that was there and heard him. But we heard him say this. And it was directed to me. The comments were directed to me at a table that we were sitting at in a restaurant. And So you look at that and you look at the $20 million the Republican Party put to prop him up. Why? And I can tell you why they did it to Craig. Okay. He came into Detroit. If you ever wondered why Detroit didn't burn while Grand Rapids and the rest of the state, the big cities burnt, well, they all had a Democrat mayor in them. And those mayors were placed by Soros. There's no two ways about it. I found some sources years ago that showed 175 people who were put in as mayors across the country, and it was an organized effort, right? Well, Rosalind Bliss was one of them, and now we got somebody who's even worse in place that they're pushing for a sanctuary city in Grand Rapids. That's okay. We're just going to sue him for it. And then, but Craig was brought under emergency powers, so he was not under the control or taking orders. He was able to do what he wanted to do. And that's, in my opinion, why they had to do it, to get rid of him, because they needed to have another installation of a mayor that was under their control. He didn't have to listen to the directives. And, because the chief of police, he wasn't the mayor. The chief of police answers to the mayor. Let me back up. I got everybody confused because I confused myself. He was a chief of police. He was brought in under emergency powers. Okay. He didn't have to listen to the mayor. All the other cities had Democrat mayors that had a appointed chief of police under them who listened to them. He was brought in as the chief of police under emergency powers. And he's like, he never wanted to be governor. He just wanted to be chief of police, and a good one. And so that's what happened. That's how they torpedoed him. And then as soon as John Yob took his cut, I think he took a 20% cut, he left, and they just dropped him because they had gotten him out of the way. And then all of a sudden the darling was Tudor Dixon, and they dropped her as soon as she won the primary.
Yeah, people like this that don't really have the commitment level like you did. I mean, you were ready to play ball, and as soon as you got in office, you were like, we're game on. You were going to do what Trump is doing now in the state of Michigan.
More brutally, though. It would have been a deeper cut and a quicker cut, because...
But what I'm trying to say is, like, Craig not being committed to the level that you were. If he didn't feel like the election was done properly, he would have just potentially, I don't know him, so I don't know. He would have just been like, oh, well, I lost, and not fight it.
I would have stepped down. I would have literally stepped down. If something like that had happened, I'm like, bye-bye career. I'll make a career switch before I capitulate to the powers that be. And all of us have to make that decision in our lives. Are we going to stand for something, or if something hits us out of the norm, are we just going to fold and capitulate like John James did? John James quit before and Tudor Dixon quit before the votes were counted. Kelly should have challenged this because he had more supporters that had contributed to him in one area than he got votes. That's statistically impossible. Why did none of these people fight it? Why did the Republican Party not launch a lawsuit against this? Why did the Republicans in office, the legislature, why did they not contest this? They knew about the cheating. None of them did a thing, because they were all playing ball with this. And there was only one person that was truly from the outside, right here. And I got attacked brutally. And not just from a standpoint of politically. Nobody saw what was happening behind the scenes. No one actually saw the attacks that we were actually under. And I'll be darned if I'll capitulate or make that somebody else's problem. My whole thought is, I'm going to make this look real easy. And we're going to keep coming back and punching them, in any way I can, not physically. Don't go stupid on me, anybody, but you know what I mean? It's like to go back and refuse to capitulate and just find another way to either attack them, in a counterattack move, or just refuse to give up.
One thing you got to remember when you look at Craig out in Detroit, the one thing during the absolute COVID nonsense that they were doing out there is he was going around and he was supporting the closing of businesses, right? He was also not upholding the law and holding the officers accountable within his jurisdiction that were going around and citing these people for violation of these nonsense unlawful orders. So I don't hold a lot of respect for that guy, even though they propped him up in the spotlight afterwards. I've talked with him a couple of different times, but I mean, he really never came back and apologized to the people for that. Right.
I agree with that. I agree.
I wanted to go back, Karen, because you had said something regarding Trump releasing a J6ers, and one of the first things he has to do, and like I said, I hold the opposing view here, but one of the first things he has to do is secure the nation, right? Well, I want to remind everybody that this is the same Trump who violates the First Amendment in calling for the death of individuals who would dare speak out against the modern day nation of Israel. This is also the same guy who violates the Second Amendment and authorizes the ATF under his signature alone to ban bump stocks and allow for the reclassification of machine guns to just be accessories, right? Calling a bump stock a machine gun. This is the same Trump who violates the Fourth Amendment after the Parkland shooting and says we need to take the guns first and then due process later. This is the same Trump who violates the life of the individuals, right? And this is a hard one because he's supposed to be the most pro-life president. Yet in his previous 4-term tenure, when he was in office, he donated more than $600 million more to Planned Parenthood than Barack Obama did, right? When you look at it at face value, it's the exact opposite of what's being said. And I don't think Trump is claiming to be these things. I honestly believe that the people are actually making the claims and he's just going along with it, right? No less than when Mark Grinnell had said that he was the most pro-gay president there was, right? And he just retweeted that.
Rick.
He agrees with that, Zach. And then also the rabbi from Israel who called him, he is as the second coming of Christ, the Messiah. Right. And Trump retweeted that on his page also and said, thank you. Right. It's the people putting these people in these positions and they just get to go along with it because they're making all sorts of highlight. So I don't believe for a minute that there's any sort of national security going on, but rather what you see is the exact same administration that we had prior to, but on steroids. I mean, for Pete's sake, we got Bill Gates sitting there as an advisor to the White House, right? Immediately, what was it? Day one, we pulled out of the World Health Organization, right? He wrote that executive order up. Yay, everybody was up in arms. And then what happened the very next day or 2 days after that? Well, no, we probably need to stay in that. And bam, right back into the World Health Organization we go, right? It's the same one that getting rid of the NAFTA. Everybody's so proud we got rid of NAFTA, but instead we get the USMCA, which sold off another 10% of our U.S. sovereignty to the UN, right? We want to bring in Canada and Greenland now. Why is that? It falls right in line with the Club of Rome's, the 10 kingdoms of the earth that want to be set up. The North American Union, it falls right in line with that. So I have a hard time believing any of that because what I see them doing is the opposite of what's being said of them, right? And I don't know, we'll see in due time. But
that's how I know look at this and evaluate it and go, we need to not just have this be a popularity club, but actually look at what's being done. Because, there was something that came out this week that said that there was someone in Palestine, East Palestine, with the train derailments that was using President Trump's name and embezzled a whole bunch of money. So there could be many levels to this, and I don't know what they are either. I don't have the answers to all of this, but we have to hold them accountable no matter who they are. If they step out of line, no matter who it is, we did not elect a king. We did not coronate a king. We're not supposed to be coronating a king. He's supposed to be one of us. And if the people around him are not doing the right thing, they need to be called out for it. Excuse me. But there could be another level to this too. And that other level could be, I have said from the beginning that I'm really not liking the Trump appointments. I never have. And I kind of wonder if it's throwing people out in the spotlight to get us to think and look at them. Now, I'm pretty happy with some of the things that Hegseth is doing. I like Tom Holman. I know Tom Holman. But at the end of the day, if we don't go after that code that I just read and clean the criminals out from top to bottom, we failed. And it's policy theater. This is a concern that I have. And so I'm sitting back going, looks like it's kind of going in a good direction. I'm not going to take that away. Okay. These things had to happen, and there were things that needed to happen. And it's probably in a very stepped out process. And if that's the plan, is to do it in a stepped out process as we watch this unfold, I'm all in. Okay. Then as long as we continue to move in that direction, but nobody out there better be spiking that football right now until we start seeing the arrests and the prosecution of the criminals that have committed the crimes. And I mean in mass. And that means
there you go.
From the top of that is the problem that I have too. And I agree with you, Bill. I sit back and I'll give people the benefit of the doubt. But until we see these people punished for the crimes of treason, and I mean from the top office all the way down to the townships and everything in between, all of the hired traitors and appointed traitors within the government, because there's lots of them, all of the people that have played ball in an economic way with utilizing their influence for doing, say pretended legislation and regulation and all of it, they have all committed treason. They've used different methods to do it, but they have. And then we're not even talking yet about going into the healthcare system and the intentional murder of Americans, the collusion and the collaboration with World Health Organization, with World Economic Forum, with all of these foreign entities that have literally taken up their weapons of war against the United States and the people of America. Until that moment, I will not be celebrating.
Yep. And that's all one of the other things I have, this whole make America healthy again. I mean, the appointment, Robert F. Kennedy, I don't know how many people have actually looked in, but he comes from a family that demands justice, right? I'm all for that. But this is the guy that was promoting vaccines all the way up until just before he started running for the presidency under the Libertarian Party or the Natural Law Party, whichever it was. I think it was Natural Law. But he was pro-vaccination all the way up until that, and supported the COVID shots as well, until he started making the public eye as a candidate, and then turned around, which I'm glad of, and became the anti-vaxxer that he's supposed to be, right up until now. He's a Trump appointment, and now he's pushing the vaccines again, right? That should throw a huge red flag to the people. And really all it is a pony show, right? They're saying what they need to say to get where they need to be so they can do what they want to do. And all the while I'm sitting back and say, I ain't having it. And the biggest thing I have, and we say it all the time, right? The root of the problem is the heart of the people, because government is a reflection of who the people are. It's what we are going to tolerate. So I want to read this a minute, because out of Deuteronomy 18, the Lord addresses this, right? As the nation had just walked around in the wilderness forever. It's actually before this, but this is a repeat of it. Walked around in the wilderness, round and round the mountain, because they just didn't get it right the first time. So we had to kill off this generation whose idolatry prevented them from serving the God that they said yea and amen to. And in Deuteronomy 18, verse 9, he says, when thou art come into the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, thou shalt not learn to do after the abominations of these nations, as in the nations that existed before you got there. There shall not be found among you anyone that maketh a son or daughter pass through the fire, right? That uses divination, or an observer of times, enchanter, or a witch, a charmer, consulter of familiar spirits, wizard, a necromancer. Look at some of the stuff Elon Musk does, and you'll find a lot of that tied in just there alone. He says, for all that do these things are an abomination unto the Lord. And because of these abominations, the Lord thy God doth drive them out from before thee. Thou shalt be perfect before the Lord thy God, right? he goes in to say that if you start doing these things that happened beforehand, right? You can read about that with King Manasseh, right? He caused Israel to do worse than the heathen whom the Lord had driven out before the land, right? And apply that to what we see today, right? We have up and coming generations, right? We are here now. We have been given the land by the blood of the fathers and the blood of the patriots that came before us to overthrow the same tyrant across the pond that we watch our government turn into on a daily basis, right? That's their blood they put up. Their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor they gave in its entirety without defect of a single signer. And the millions of lives lost through all of the early years in founding this country. And you look at it and you wonder, what am I doing to uphold that blood, right? What am I doing in their honor? Am I going to hold to what they stood for? Or am I going to sit back and submit and comply to what I see? Because out of my own comfort and satisfaction, I don't want to get up and actually fight the necessary battles that we've been called to fight in cleaning our own nation out, right? Because the government does not rule over the people. People got to get that one in their heads. The government is founded by we the people and is for their equal protection of their rights under the law, right? That's pretty simple, which means they serve us. We don't serve them, right? So it's our duty to hold them in their place. And when they get outside of that, we have very, very well given provisions in our Constitution to hold them accountable, right? The first easy one is impeachment. But if our representatives won't do that, then we need to stand up and be the law and force that issue to our government, right? Benjamin Franklin had something really clear about this because he was one that did not agree with everything in the Constitution, right? He said, I agree to this Constitution after the signing of it. He said, I believe further that this is likely to be well administered for a course of years and can only end in despotism as other forms have done before it, when the people shall become so corrupted as to need a despotic government, being incapable of any other. How certain is that?
Well, I tell you, one of the things that I saw that on the ground saw, or observed, that's kind of my thing. And I went to the RNC and I literally was threatened by Secret Service because I posted something that they didn't want to kick me out. And I'm like, I was so mad. Somebody finally brought me ice cream to get me to calm down because I was like, to distract me a little bit. I was so angry at their audacity for this. But what I saw there, what was the most disturbing is it was money, 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 wealth, prosperity, money, 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 money. And I sat back and I'm like, is this all that this party stands for? Is it only about wealth and prosperity of the individual? And remember, it's like, seek ye the kingdom of God first, and all these things will be added to you. But if we don't get this in the proper order and we don't have honesty and integrity, it won't make any difference. No changes will be made. It goes back to that. But that's actually what I saw. But what I did see is I saw good guys that were operational behind the scenes. And that was when the speakers got up, their backdrops changed. And it was real obvious. I screenshotted all of it, and I was there. I saw it. I saw things that anybody that was watching on camera did not see. You had to be present to observe this. And what happened was a good portion of the people that were up speaking had the pyramid of our money behind them, and it was money, money. And all of a sudden I was like, somebody's trying to tell us what's going on. We've got to pay attention and not take things at face value, which is why I don't take what we're seeing right now at face value either. Some of them had, a lot of them had that banner, and then all of a sudden somebody would get up there, just a normal person, talking about what they've done to help the United States, and it said everyday American, and the money was gone because the motivation was for the love of the country. And so I'm like, okay, that's a money person. That's tied into the system. That person is not that person. And you could divide it right up just by seeing what you were seeing there. So going back to this, if we don't flush out this love of money virus, this win at all costs, this I'm going to step on my neighbors, and unless you pay me, I'm not going to do a thing, we've lost the nation. And then the only thing we should do is pray to God for a benevolent dictator that will save the people from their own stupidity and greed.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot. We talk about party politics because, Donna, you and I are in it, right? Party politics. However, we don't play the same games that the other parties do. We seek to hold to the standard, and it doesn't matter if we completely fail in the eyes of the people. I'd rather be a fool for Christ than successful in the eyes of the people, right?
Mm-hmm.
We spoke about John Adams when he was talking about party politics, right? That it was the greatest, he perceived it as the greatest evil under our Constitution, right? And the Constitution doesn't allow for it, but it doesn't diminish it either, right? And I like to go back to George Washington, what he said about party politics, because he said that party politics, they serve to organize factions, right? Or groups of people to put in place of the delegated will of the nation, the will of the party, often a small but artful, enterprising minority. He said, let me warn you in the most solemn manner against the baneful effects of the spirit of party. It is important that those entrusted with its administration, right? Also, once again, not party leaders, party servants, administration of it. It's important that they confine themselves within their respective constitutional spheres, avoiding in the exercise of the powers of one department any encroachment upon another. Same thing, separation of powers in our Constitution, right? Parties should be the miniature representation of a government at large as well. He said the spirit of encroachment tends to consolidate the powers of all the departments in one, and thus to create what? A real despotism. If, in the opinion of the people, the distribution or modification of the constitutional powers be in any particular wrong, let it be corrected by an amendment in the way which the Constitution designates. But let there be no change by usurpation. For though this in one instance may be the instrument of good, it is the customary weapon by which free governments are destroyed. Right? The destruction of government by usurpations through policy. If we want to change something, the people have every authority to alter our government or completely abolish it, if that is so needed to establish new guards for their security. But we have every authority to alter it. But not a single alteration of government should be handled by any usurpation whatsoever, because there is no new correction that we can perceive to fix old problems. Every problem we see today can be handled using the old solutions that we, the people, have the power of, right? Because all political power is inherent in the people. Most state constitutions state that, line 1, first thing right after the preamble. So if all political power is inherent in the people, we have every right to use the measures that we've been given, our natural rights by our Creator, and the natural laws to fix every single one of these problems. And that's a big issue I have. And that's why I speak out on it so much, is because people have adopted this mindset that somehow through voting in a certain politician, they're going to fix all of our problems. It will never happen. However, I'm not going to diminish the responsibility of that political official. Right? The political servant. I got to quit calling them officials, because really they're not official in any capacity. Yeah,
a public functionary who has a function, a job description, and may not deviate from that.
Yeah, but any one of them currently that hold that authority could fix the problems, but they are not allowed to do it by usurpation. Right? That's why I speak out against executive orders all the time. Right? Some of them are good. I understand, especially like the J6ers, right? Releasing a J6ers. Absolutely. That was perfect. It had to be done. Now let's see those who put them in jail prosecuted. Let's see that next, first thing. However, that didn't even need to be done by executive order because it was unlawful to hold them in the first place. Right? The people should have been the power there to rise up, and he could have easily used the people to do so. In fact, I would have loved to see that first and foremost. Right? Public call, we're going to militarize 100,000 people, and we're just going to go release the J6ers. What are they going to do about it? I mean, really. But people frown on that because it's been so demeaned over the years. But really, that's the way it should have been done, right? The executive order directing a private branch, not even really within government, and that is the prison system, right? An executive order to direct that has no constitutional weight. But like I said, I'm glad it's done. They had to be released. So I'm not throwing that back at his feet and saying you're wrong in doing this. I'm saying that it should have been done differently. But now that we're here, start prosecution, right?
Well, there's so many problems with the prison system since they privatized it. They're actually, in my opinion, it's more about human trafficking and or using hostages across the entire system. It's a hostage situation that they're making money off of, and that's going to need to be seriously.
Yes, and he repeatedly called them hostages.
They're political prisoners.
Yeah, he repeatedly used that term, and when he does that, I think he's trying to make a point. To answer your point, Bill, I think one of the reasons he did that by executive order was, number one, to speedily put an end to their suffering, and number two, I think if he did anything else, it would have created more of a chaotic situation where he's trying to bring peace immediately. And by saying, hey, I'm going to do this. This is DC. This is a foreign land. I'm going to ensure that this happens, and I'm going to keep the rest of the country safe while I do it. That, I think, brings more of a peaceful setup right at the start than to do something that the people aren't ready for. There's a lot of things. I mean, we can use grand juries and start calling people like Fauci in. Maybe that's already been done. We just don't know. There's so many things that we don't know. That's what frustrates me. I want all the information right now.
Yeah.
You know, I want to know what's actually happening. I want to know who that Whitmer face that we're seeing actually is and what's actually going on. And is Benson actually running for governor, or are we supposed to get even more angry and do something about it? But I think we have to pick up what's being laid down in front of us a step at a time and research and run the ball, because that's what's the pattern of things that have been happening for the last few years. He lays down something like hydroxychloroquine, and people go, wait a minute, what's he saying? What is this misspelling of coffee? You know, some of the country laughs and some of the country goes, I think he's trying to tell us something. Let's look into it. And we've been practicing this whole time how to research, how to share information. And now that we have more control over the media than anything, than ever before, we're able to share the information that we learn more effectively. And the more this happens, the more awake the country is, the more the emotions can be controlled, but we're able to use them in a healthy and effective way. I posted yesterday that the night before there's a show called 911 Lone Star, takes place in Texas. And it was chock full of leftist narratives. And they used the emotions of the people to drive it. So, for example, you got a couple of gay men who want to adopt some kids. And they didn't have a problem with the adoption because they were gay, but because one of them's a fireman and one of them's a policeman. And we're meant to feel really sad about that. And then we're supposed to be sad about all of these other things, or very emotional about all these other topics. And then at the end, there's an asteroid that's coming to Texas. It's going to hit us in Austin in an hour. And there's chaos everywhere. And then in the next episode, it looks like they're going to have a nuclear something as a result of this. And I'm like, they want people to be in out of control, stressed out, emotional, cortisol, adrenaline induced fever every night before they go to bed, instead of looking carefully around at what happened during the day while they were hard at work, and determining what they're going to do about it in the days to come to make their community safer. you know and it's this kind of stuff. If you have an awareness and you build that up, you see it for what it is. I think that's part of what we're seeing happening, that he is bringing human trafficking to the forefront via J6ers and the hostage name terminology there, via the securing of the border narratives, the illegal immigrants being deported narratives. All of these things, we're going down that pathway to, okay, people, what are we going to do to protect these kids? And step by step is what I'm getting at again.
I think we are there too. And somebody brought up, David brought up the fact that, and I met RFK. I want to revisit this based on the comment here, that RFK, I met him. I thought he was probably the most sincere person in politics that I ever met. I really do. And he actually apologized. He said, we thought we were doing the right thing at the border. And he said, we created the largest human tragedy in history. And he's like, we were wrong. He admitted it, and it was sincere. So one thing that David said is RFK Jr. does not support COVID-19 vaccine mandates. Initially he did, but changed his mind after all the health complications. RFK does support freedom of choice. That is not a contradiction. He also said Washington violated the Constitution by raising troops to combat the Whiskey Rebellion protesters. Therefore, Trump has no lawful authority to raise an army to spring J6ers from prison. Remember 1861. So something I think that I always appreciate everybody's wisdom here. Curtis said the conservatives need to be more proactive with the large cities and make constitutional sanctuary cities. If executive orders used to end sanctuary cities, we have then lost local control. So good comments by all. So yeah. I think that, I'm gonna defend people's right to change their opinions too, because I know all of us have. I'm gonna tell you right now, my opinions on things have been altered so much from years and years ago because I just didn't know. And as we continue to learn from each other, from Bill, from Karen, from David, from Curtis, from Charlotte that's on here all the time, and Denise, and all the people that like John Tater and people who come forward, we have to sit and consider this and learn and be able to change our positions. Now, that doesn't always mean that people do. A lot of people use that just to mislead us. And I think that because we've all been burned by this, we're hyper vigilant on it, which isn't a bad thing. But remember, it's us that has to hold them accountable, not just before with the statements they say, but with their actions afterwards. And that goes right back to what you said, Bill, that it's our responsibility and not look at people as our new savior. I don't know about you guys, but I already have one. His name is Jesus. And so everybody else is kind of lumped into one category as a bunch of God's children mulling around here trying to get things right and listen to him and try to get things right. Now, there are people that are not God's children that are here to subvert him and are at war with him. I get that. And we have to use discernment to know the difference between the two.
And to address that comment, he's absolutely right. Washington had his own violations, right? And I believe every single president has violated the Constitution in one point or another. That is why the people have to hold them accountable. Because if somebody would have held that account to Washington, that could have been corrected and addressed, right? And to his other point, he's absolutely right that Trump should not be raising an army to do such things. And nor did I ever call for the raising of an army to do such things. Understand the verbiage. I called for a militant force of people, right? That is calling forth the people to execute the laws of the Union, no less than we are called to. And that Congress should be disciplining, training, and arming, right? Article 1, Section 8. That is the militia. I am against raising armies for almost every single purpose. unless there is a valid declaration of war, in which case all the politicians that called for it should be the ones to go first, lead by example, and then the people will follow you. But in a lot of instances, because the president has, one of his duties is to ensure that the laws of the union are faithfully executed, right? One of the ways that can be done is to call into the service the militia of the states, right? And that's all volunteer force. It's not volunteer force. Nice, Bill. It's all volunteer service. It's not forcible service, right? Because had that been done, yeah, I may have been one of the ones to go and do it, right? Because I see a valid use for it. It's no less than the times that has happened in Michigan, where the people have risen up for that same purpose. Namely, in 2020, we made that declaration on the Capitol grounds, which is also why that they decided to take the unconstitutional, the commission, the Capitol Commission, whatever they call that, I don't know, but that unconstitutional commission to say that, oh, well, now you can't have visible firearms on Capitol grounds. Right? That was right after we made that declaration in front of every politician in the state of Michigan. Right? But that's the point, is that the people have the power to do it. And the people are continuously looking for the actions of one or two individuals to start the process instead of doing it themselves. Right? Alex and I mispronounce his last name all the time. I think it's Alice de Tocqueville, was one of the early men of the foundation of the country. He was speaking about democratic socialism, which I believe is what we're headed into, right? He says that power is absolute, minute, regular, it's provided, and mild. It would be like the authority of a parent if, like that authority, its object was to prepare men for manhood. But in a democratic socialist environment, it seeks, on the contrary, to keep them in a perpetual childhood. It is well content that the people should rejoice, provided they think of nothing but rejoicing. For their happiness, such a government willingly labors, but it chooses to be the sole agent and the only arbiter of that happiness. It provides for their security, foresees and supplies their necessities, facilitates their pleasures, manages their principal concerns, directs their industry, regulates the descent of property, and subdivides their inheritances. How many of those things can we count that it's happening today? I think I can count all of them in one form or another. He says, what remains to spare them of all the care of thinking and the trouble of living? After having thus successfully taken each member of the community in its powerful grasp and fashioned them at will, the supreme power then extends its arms over the whole community. It covers the surface of society with a network of small, complicated rules, right? Policy, ordinances. They are minute and uniform. Think about the Michigan Township Association. Every state has a township association, and they all walk lockstep in these ordinances, right? Through which the most original minds and most energetic characters cannot penetrate, to rise above the crowd. The will of men is not shattered, but softened, bent, and guided. Men are seldom forced by it to act, but they are constantly restrained from acting. Such a power does not destroy, but it prevents existence. It does not tyrannize, but it compresses, extinguishes, and stupefies a people till the nation is reduced to be nothing better than a flock of timid and industrious animals, of which the government is the shepherd. All right? Profound words from early on in this country.
Say his name again, please.
What's that?
Who is that again?
That was Alex de Tocqueville. I'm pretty sure I pronounced it wrong. It was Tocqueville.
Okay. Amazing. And we just repeat it over and over again, which is unfortunate, but hopefully we'll just keep trying, but we have to stick to the law.
Yeah. There's a standard of right and wrong in this country. And I'm not going to bend from that to to fit into somebody else's narrative, right? And I understand. I mean, even as you and Karen talk about, I understand there's a lot of good that's happening. You can see it at face value, but there's also a lot of bad that's happening along with it. And I'm not going to bend to one side and just forget the other side. But rather, I'm going to hold to the truth, the scriptures and the Constitution, because they walk hand in hand when it comes to the government that's established here. I'm going to hold to those two, and I'm going to draw the line in the sand and walk on that.
I
right?
think
And that's what every person has to do if we're going to restore this nation.
I agree with you, and I think that this is our base character. It's certainly yours and mine, is that we go right straight to being a warrior and saying, "Oh, hell no," that's where we go immediately, right? But I also recognize the fact that there's a lot of people that can't handle that type of an approach. And so to throw in some good news once in a while instead of just solve the problems, it's something I've had to really work on, because I'd rather just go headlong into the fire and get done with it. And that's really what needs to be done. But when you've got a population that isn't geared for that, have been basically brainwashed, it's too much for most people to handle. And it's unfortunate, but we need to grow up, and we need to grow up very quickly and step into protect each other without fear and get this thing handled. I mean, no fear. It's going to take no fear going forward. I love that. I want to put something else out here that shows the corruption. Federal employees are suing over the idea that the president can email the executive branch. 2 federal workers filed a lawsuit to stop the federal government HR office from emailing all civilian federal staff at once, saying it violates privacy rules. The Office of Personnel Management is testing a system to send emails to roughly 2.3 million federal employees from a single email address, according to the agency's website. The new feature would allow senior Trump administration officials to communicate directly with the staff across the government rather than relying on managers to distribute the information. The workers argue that the OPM must first review how the new system collects and stores personal information about government employees, according to the complaint filed in the U.S. District Court in the District of Columbia. They're trying to manipulate the chain of communications, which is why we have to have zero censorship and have platforms like this that say whatever you want to say, whether anybody agrees with you or not. And I thought that was kind of a significant thing to try to tuck in there right now.
And there is a danger in that as well. I always seem to be the one that sees the danger in things. When you consolidate
Power.
Information, and the communication into one area of government, right? Then the other branches cannot speak out against it. That was one of the things that just recently happened too. And I'm not sure where I stand on this, but I'm against it in the censorship fact. One of the executive orders that had just come out, I don't know, it may not have been executive orders. Somebody can correct me on that. But one of the directives that had just come out was that all the health agencies, that includes the NHI, the WHO, and all the other ones that exist at a federal level, were called to cease communication to the public. Right now, I wondered, well, what are they trying to not get out in the eyes of the public? Whether good or bad, I don't know.
They did it in Byron Township, and they admitted to it, that they weren't allowed to talk to us about the election, that we had to go to the state denying us the access at a local level because they were taking orders from the state of Michigan. And who was on top of that? Benson, Brader, Nessel, and Whitmer. They were literally, their orders were going straight from the top, right down through the Secretary of State into the townships, and the townships were following orders. Unlawful orders, which makes them guilty. The ignorance of the law is not an excuse.
That's right. And that's why I say you have to work at the local level. We need to get our eyes off thinking that somehow we can change federally, and start working at your local level. Right. You want some good news? I can show you just a small glimpse of good news, because I told you a couple weeks ago, I hold an appointed position. All right, on a planning commission, right? That's one of the things I didn't ask for again, but I was asked to do it. And I said, if the people want me there, so be it, right? I'll serve in that capacity. And one of the things, very first meeting, right, of all the things to come before me, we live out in the sticks, right? We're kind of our own little rural community, and we don't want government oversight. Everybody that I know of can agree and attest to that fact in this community. But one of the things that had come down by the Michigan Township Association through a third-party zoning administration known as Fresh Coast Planning out of Grand Haven.
Oh, that's a big one. I'm glad you brought it up.
It was and most townships are doing that, by the way. They don't have internal zoning administrators anymore. And I got my own issues with zoning administration that I'm working on. But nonetheless, this came across my desk, very first meeting. And that was a change to the ordinances under the use by right lands. Okay. Understand the term use by right. That means you have a right to use it for these purposes if it's your land. Just plain and simple. One of those uses was storing, packaging, processing, canning, and freezing of farm produce. It makes sense. If you have a garden or you have animals, you are going to tend to that, and you are going to reap what you've sown, right? And you're probably going to hold it. You're probably going to can it, preserve it, if you're a prepper or whatever, or if you're just going to use it. Either way, that all falls under your right to use your land for that purpose. Here's the catch. They wanted to tag a subsection onto that one particular use to say that to do that, quote, must demonstrate compliance with all applicable local and state regulation by providing copies of all required permits and licenses to the township. Now, where was the law referenced in any of that? Last I checked, I don't have to follow state regulations because that is policy that undermines the law that the people put in place for them to follow. But that is what came across the desk, right? 2 of us out of 5 that were there, 2 of us raised questions against it, right? I rose in opposition immediately to it because I recognized what it was doing, because it doesn't fall under the commercial policies or special use permits that they want to authorize for the people's property, but rather it falls under use by right. I don't want to have to provide any licensing or permits if I want to can my tomatoes.
Mm-hmm.
As simple as that. So the text of this ordinance was in complete violation with the Constitution. 2 of us stood against it. After 45 minutes, people got sick of talking about it and moved to table it till the next meeting, right? Everybody was for it except the same 2 people. They just wanted to push it off for another month. And that's the way they continually do it, through all these little policies that add up and continually strip the people of their God-given rights. Now, granted, they can't be taken from you. You have to willingly lay them down, right? Nobody can take your rights away from you if they're God-given. Now, if you're one of the people that don't believe that there is a God and think that your rights come from some other agency of the state, I feel sorry for you, right? But maybe you come and talk with me. I'll try to straighten you up on this a little bit, because that's the way our nation was founded. And as soon as you flip that on its head, the state is now God. You have to do what they say. Right? Then you can follow Romans 13 the way the modern day church wants to preach it. In the meantime, I'm not going to follow a tyrant. I'm going to abide by Romans 13, and namely the verse that comes before that in Romans 12, where it calls, we are to overcome evil with good, not submit to it, not succumb to it, overcome evil with good, right? We are never called to submit to tyrants that operate outside of the Lord's authority. So that was one of the good things that happened. Now at the next meeting, I immediately moved to dismiss it, right? But like most good ignorant tyrants are, they try to push that off and start talking about discussion and hoping to bury that motion. Donna, you know me. You know how well I operate under normal procedural rules and Robert's Rules of Order, right? I hold to that. So when discussion came up to talk about it, everybody else started giving their 2 cents on my motion without support yet. And then it came to me to answer a question. I flat out told them, I will not discuss this with you unless somebody supports it. If it doesn't get supported, throw it in the trash can. We'll move on. Right? And when we got to that point, my other guy who has been with me this whole time, right, the other one, he finally supported that. We opened discussion, and within 10 minutes, it was gone. The whole thing was just destroyed. Like, praise God. I understand one little tidbit of why this was offered to me as this position. I don't know what else is coming down the road. I really don't care, because sufficient is the evil of the day, right? I don't have to worry about what evils are going to happen tomorrow. There's plenty of them happening right now that I need to deal with. But yeah, that's good news. Local level, local impact, right? That is going to be where you produce your national results, because at the local level, the people have the power to put a stop to any of this. And if you can put a stop to it in your community and protect your own community, right? Your fellow citizens, your countrymen, those who also came down the bloodline of that which was shed during the early foundation of this country, protect them, help them, get them knowledgeable and able to do the same things. Train up the next generation in the way that they'll go. That way, when they're older, they won't depart from it either. Right? We all good with that? I could go on for like 3 more hours on that topic alone. That's what we have to do. Right? And I'm trying to lead by example. I'm not saying this and not doing it. That's the point. A lot of people are out there just saying things, all these things that have to be done, but are unwilling to lift a finger to do it.
They go to the political parties and they sit there and they whine and sob and they think they're getting something done, and they're not. You've got to get involved. And that's, I think, the biggest message of the day today is you got to go to the meetings. You've got to speak out to them. You have to be able to go to, say, like Grand Rapids when they're trying to make it a sanctuary city, and say, no, this isn't happening. Know the law. Put it in their face and say, if you do not follow this, we're going to remove you. We're going to sue you for it, but we're also going to remove you from this, and you'll never have a chance again. It needs to be done. There's got to be more action than just going and having coffee. And I think that's your point here, is you've got to be willing to serve, and to serve unbending and following the law, so that we do have the ability to live peacefully with our neighbors. This is fantastic. Well, I tell you what, this actually might be a good place to stop too for the day. I don't have anything after you guys, and so let's go ahead and Bill and I are kind of like both of us a little bit this morning. So let's go ahead and end this with a prayer. Do you want to pray today, Bill?
Well, let me say one more thing real quick. This won't take more than 30 minutes. All right. I wear a pin, right? When I actually get dressed up formally, when the people require it of me to put on formal clothes, I have a pin on my lapel, right? It has the word whining with a big X through it, right? And a lot of people ask me about that, and they look at my kids. I got 4 kids, 1 on the way, due probably in about 4 hours, hopefully. But they look at that and say,
I feel the same way.
They look at me and say, "Oh, well, we understand. It's rough raising kids that like to whine about things." I was like, "Oh, hold on a minute. My children don't whine, right? When they do, I correct it and they stop immediately. They understand that. I wear this to remind adults to quit whining, because the definition of whining is complaining about something without proposing a solution. If you don't have a solution, or if you're not even willing to talk about a solution, shut up. Don't waste my time complaining about the problem."
I learned a thing or two about that one. In assembly. That was a big topic from time to time, because you get you could be whining for hours without having a solution brought forward, and it became a thing. No, you come with emotion, or we ain't talking about it.
That's right.
All right. Well, let's say a prayer and go on to our days, guys. I love you guys. You guys are amazing. I was the same way. I was like Sergeant Mom with my kids. I said the same thing. If they complained about food at the table, they lost dessert on the first shot. The second shot, they left the table, and that was it for the night. And it's amazing how, they would eat anything, as far as, they never went. Somebody says, "I need hot dogs. I need macaroni and cheese." I'm like, "Oh, you got to be kidding me. You're going to be eating lettuce and spinach here for 3 days to correct your attitude, And I think that's that training that we're talking about is, and we all need training. All of us do. There's always something we can do to better ourselves, to better our communications, to learn how to be a better human, just be a better human, be more educated, and have the strength to walk forward. Bill, do you want to say prayers today, or do you want me to do it?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Can I say something just before? And it won't take more than a minute. There is a human trafficking seminar taking place in Muskegon tonight. I posted it on my Telegram channel. I'll repost it again if anybody is interested in that. Actually, let me see if I can.
I think Chris Swanson is part of that, and somebody said that he actually supported Whitmer. So I'm going to say I can't confirm or deny that, but I do
Yes,
think
he
that,
is. He
yeah,
is one of the speakers, and I'm going with a very open mind but critical eye and ear. I went to the one in Detroit, so I have a background course of information, but I want more Michigan specifics. I want to know what these parties are going to say. It's 1910 Ruddiman Drive, Christchurch, Muskegon, and they'll be open by 4:45 because they have tables with displays. But the presentation and discussion starts at 5:30 to 8. It's got a Genesee Human Oppression Strike Team called Ghost and Genesee County Sheriff Christopher Swanson. The panel discussion, Survivor, the Hope Project, Muskegon Prosecutor's Office, Farmworkers Legal Services, Child Abuse Council, and the FBI. So it should be quite an interesting evening.
it should be. But remember, a little bird told me that I believe Swanson's thinking about running for governor, or planning to. So
Okay.
there's some things that we need to keep our eyes on a little bit. And I don't have anything against the guy. I don't have anything against anyone, but I think we should be unbiased and watchful and see what's actually going on there. All right, Bill, let's say prayers and get on to our day.
All right. Father, thank you again for this day, and thank you for the ability to come before who knows how many thousands of people, Father. I ask that you would open eyes and ears as people watch this or who have been here watching it, Father. And though there's obviously always a little bit of dissension and controversy among the people, Father, I thank you that your Spirit will unify your church every time. Father, we seek to correct the blatant tyranny and the blatant oppression and the blatant godlessness that we see come through our government. I do believe that you helped establish it, that you gave the many of the founders and framers the insight and the ability to do what they did, Father. And I ask that you'd keep that in constant reminder of each one of us, that we don't trample their blood, and continue to grant us wisdom as we proceed. Give us each courage, Father, to say what needs to be said, to do what needs to be done. The very simple things that we're called to do, Father. Help us to be overcomers, and fill us with your Spirit each and every day, every moment, sometimes by the second, Father, we need it. And bless the group as we proceed out through this next week, Father, and bring us again together safely. I pray in Jesus' name, amen.
In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. I love you both. You guys are amazing friends, and I'm proud to stand with you and always learn something from each of you every single day. So I appreciate your time and effort that you put into this. I wish everybody knew you as well as I do, both of you, and their life would be better because of it. So with that said, here we go, boys and girls, too. Please go to brandenburgforgovernor.com because I'm the best not conceded who has ever not conceded in the history of the United States of America. And I'd like to have a discussion with the rightful president of the United States, President Donald J. Trump, about this in cowboy boots. So actually, I don't do that much with that website. I do a lot more on my Telegram channel, which is at Brandenburg, the number 4MI. I got censored this week on TikTok, and not only did they take a video out, and I'm pretty sure it was for a certain flu, which I am not believing is a true flu, and that the poultry processors are actually getting paid money by the government to destroy our food supply, which is what this planning company that Bill brought up is all about. It's to destroy our food supply. That is their MO. They've done it throughout history, and they're not going to change. So get a victory garden, get some chickens, and plan on raising your own food, because that's your only security right now. Or you better know a farmer, and don't come to me in pumps if you're going to do it. Okay. Have some boots on, ready to work. So, with that said, though, have a great day. I'm going to be on tomorrow with Sean Starry is on in the first hour, and then Jonathan Cagle is going to be on tomorrow. We have a lot of information that's going to be coming out tomorrow on these bad actors, the bad guys that are actually behind the scenes. And because of some of the people that I know and talk to, I'm going to tell you I have a lot more optimism than because there are things going on behind the scenes, and certain things had to be done that way. I'm pretty sure. I don't have any huge master plan knowledge or anything like that, but I can draw some conclusions just from that I took. So, but Jonathan Cable is going to be on tomorrow. And so look forward to that. And Coach Dave is going to be on Friday after our Off the Grid show. I like Coach Dave. And he clearly calls out and said it's time for the church to stand up. And I agree, we can no longer be, Gentile Jesus with a lamb in his foot and just walk away going, wow, I just got kicked in the face again and watched millions of babies being murdered, and I'm just going to sit here and plead Gentile Jesus with a lamb in his foot. That's not the way it works. And I think we need to be talking about some of these air pack handled politicians too. We've got a real problem. And when you see the money that's been dumped into Israel, I'm not talking about the Jewish people. I have no quarrel with them, but I do the governments of the world. And right now, we're going to have to change our thoughts and stop protecting everyone and protecting classes of people, because that's how they're taking us down. That we can't speak out about certain things. When we see crimes being committed, we have to do that. So with that said, there you go. There's the warrior part of me, And now we'll do the soft part. Well, here we go back and forth a little bit. Anyhow, God bless you all. God bless all those whom you love, and God bless America. Make it a great day. It starts here with each one of us. It starts with a heart for God and the people, and it starts with being mentally tough. You have to prepare yourself to be mentally tough, and just make up your mind that you're not going to back down, that you're going to stand for something, and have that moral, ethical line sitting right there, and don't let it move. Because that's what's going to take back this nation, is people who are willing to stand on what they believe in and not be compromised for any reason whatsoever, because the things we stand on are the invisible things that we should all desire, and not the love of money. It's for the love of country, family, God, each other, and all things good. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow, guys.